Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. I'm your host for this Wednesday morning as we are going to do a quick reaction today talking about the mid-feast week action. We weren't planning on having a show. We were planning on waiting until Friday. However, some of these just come along across the year where I'm like, we got to have a show. There's too much to talk about. So we're going to talk about some of the big results from the Players Era Festival, some of the takeaways, Maui results and takeaways, and then the preview of the remaining games. So obviously the Monday, Tuesday, Maui and Players Era results influence today's game. So we're only going to talk about that. If you want to listen to more about the Feast Week, about other events, the Acrisure, the Battle for Atlantis, go back and watch our last podcast on Monday where we previewed all those games. So today's going to be strictly Players Era Festival, Maui results, and then we had a couple other random results on Tuesday, and then we will preview the Wednesday games only. So let's dive right into it. Before diving in, though, let's just make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before heading out of here. We're going to be posting all kinds of shows like this, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. All right, let's get into this quickly. I don't want to take up too many people's times because we want to get this out before there is ball to be played today, which starts at about 12. But let's go back to Monday. Let's start where these are in just kind of no particular order. This isn't in like chronological order or anything. Just kind of what I thought some of the biggest games were. Number 12 Gonzaga took down number 8 Alabama. Good game all the way through. Gonzaga wins 95-85. Graham Ike was awesome in this one. 21 points, 11 rebounds. Tyon Grant Foster, you think Gonzaga is glad that his waiver got approved? 21 points, 7 rebounds, and Braden Huff was also good. 18 points, 8 rebounds. Braden Smith, not the Braden Smith from Purdue, Braden Smith with an E in his name, also has been really good for Gonzaga. They just have so many options. This team looks really good. This is Alabama's second loss of the season. However, with the gauntlet that they've played, in my opinion, still a top 10 team for this Alabama squad. LeBaron Philon was terrific. 29 points, 7 assists. Not worried about Alabama at all. Definitely not worried about Gonzaga. Gonzaga is up to number 1 at KenPom as we speak right now. We'll talk about them a little bit more in their next game. Players Era as well. Number 14, St. John's took on number 15, Iowa State. Number 15, Iowa State got them 83-82 in a good matchup here. Taman Lipsey did get a little injury at the end of the game. Didn't end up playing in their second game, but we'll talk about how it didn't matter. Milan Momcilovic was awesome, 23 points in this one. Josh Jefferson continues to climb as one of the best players in the Big 12, 17 points, 8 rebounds. Oziah Sellers was really good for St. John's, 20 points, 5 of 6 from 3. It tells me a little bit about both teams. I think both teams are still really good. Iowa State, we see it every year. TJ Otzelberger has built an incredible culture at Iowa State, and he is just continuing every single season to just repeat what he's done in the previous season. Remember last year, I believe they got up to number 3 in the AP poll, maybe at the highest. They might have even gotten to number 2, then dealt with some injuries. They just continue to start off the season so well. That's just that retention and that culture. For St. John's, my big concern about this team is still the point guard play. Dylan Darling has kind of stepped in and played more minutes than I expected to. I don't think that's a good thing for St. John's fans. I think they need someone else in there. He doesn't look like a, point guard that'll lead you to a national championship, in my opinion. Now, they have so many other pieces around him. We'll talk about St. John's a little bit more as they won their second game. But Oziah Sellers, this is a good sign for him to be knocking down threes. He knocked down a bunch of threes in the second game as well. So they have shooting, which they didn't have last year. However, the point guard play, they're kind of trying to play without a true point guard, it seems, when Dylan Darling's not in there. When Dylan Darling does get in there, it doesn't look much better, in my opinion. We'll talk about them once again a little bit more coming out with their second game. Also in the Players Era Festival, so all these left side games going to be Players Era Festival. Syracuse and that's number 3, Houston. I don't know why it said number 2. I'm just now realizing the mistake. They're number 3 in the country. Syracuse took them to overtime. Syracuse playing without Donnie Freeman. He is out for this tournament. Houston escapes. Milo Suzan and Emmanuel Sharp carried them, 52 points combined, 26 points apiece, the veteran pieces. But Syracuse showed a lot of fight in this game. But Houston, just as we saw last year, kind of having a similar little trajectory. Now, we'll talk about them once again a little bit more here in a second. But Houston struggled to start the season last year, has been struggling to start the season this year. We'll see if they get better and better just as they did last year and reach the national championship game. For Syracuse, William Kyle III, 12 points, 10 rebounds in this game, an absolute monster down low. However, the free throws are just, man, it's the ugliest form I think I've ever seen. I know in the game against Kansas yesterday, I saw him airball 2. I believe in this game he airballed 1. Yeah, it's going to turn into a hack a Shaq situation, as the announcers were kind of saying as well. Yeah, he's got to get that free throw down. It's ugly, but man, he's still fantastic down low. A freak athlete at the 5. I mean, I like him. I would be playing him as well, even as bad as the free throws are. But yeah, got to get those free throws down. It hurt him in this game, and it also hurt him in their second game. Auburn and Oregon. Auburn got the win 84-73. Todd Pettiford had a good one in this one, 24 points. Oregon is the story for me in this one. Auburn's just kind of okay, in my opinion, this season. I think they'll probably be like anywhere between like a 7 and 10 seed come March Madness time. Oregon, I think this team's going to miss the tournament. I don't think this team is. It might have been kind of fluky last year to start the season, where not many people knew how to guard Nate Biddle, and Jackson Shellstad's still good. They still have those two, and they got a couple other pieces, but the team, they really fell off late in the year last year. They did win a game in March Madness, but yeah, I just don't think this team's very good. We'll talk about their next game once again on Tuesday, and it was even worse than this one. But Auburn gets a good win here. Todd Pettiford looks good. Number 7, Michigan, not Michigan State. Michigan took on San Diego State and drilled them 94-54. My God, 9 players for Michigan with 6+ points in this game. 9 players. Now it's a little bit easier to say with a 40-point win, but Michigan, I've ranked them a little bit lower just because they've looked a little bit sketchy with turnovers early in the year. They had that close one against Wake Forest, the close one against TCU. Yeah, they've taken the next step. They've cleaned up the turnovers, and they are better shooters than I expected. Trey McKinney, a big part of that. The freshman who, a lot of times we just kind of overlook freshmen when we're looking at shooting for the next season. It hasn't really been the case with Florida, who was our other big team who we were scared about shooting wise. Hasn't been too awesome for them, but Michigan, they've cleaned it up. Namari Burnett's been good in this Michigan team. My goodness, Dusty May. What a coach. We don't talk enough about Dusty May and how he's still one of the elite coaches in college basketball. Done a fantastic job. This Michigan team kind of flying under the radar right now. Good win there. Baylor took on Creighton. Cam Carr for Baylor leads them to a victory, 81-74, 21 points, 9 rebounds for Cam Carr in this game. For those who didn't hear, the Creighton announcer going crazy on a Cam Carr drive to the rim, and they called a blocking foul, and it didn't even sound like the Creighton commentator said blocking. It was a little concerning at first, but it wasn't a foul either. The refs, I've talked about it a lot throughout the season. Refs haven't been very good this year. Maybe it's just watching more college basketball, more higher profile games. It's just thrown in your face, but the refs not very good this year. But it was an iconic call by the Creighton announcer there, so be sure to go look that up. Creighton announcer, I'm sure it'll pop up. I saw it on Sports Center the next day. It was pretty cool. It was pretty funny. But Baylor gets a good win here. Cam Carr has stepped into Baylor as being their kind of go-to guy. Tunde Yesufu is also kind of flying under the radar, a really good freshman as well. My concern is definitely Creighton. I don't think Creighton right now is a tournament team. The big concern coming into the season was I think they're going to be fine scoring the ball. They're not going to play much defense. However, I think they've actually been a little bit better on the defensive side than I thought, and just haven't really made shots. However, Josh Dix and Owen Freeman they didn't win at Iowa, so why would we expect them to win at Creighton? That was also kind of a concern, and it hasn't looked great. Last year, you could kind of see the pieces kind of fitting together. Now, Creighton is also playing shorthanded. They've been without Jackson McAndrew, we should mention, but I don't think he's really going to help them all too much in this scenario. I know Owen Freeman's still kind of returning from that injury, but I don't like the makeup of this Creighton team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're battling on the bubble all season long. All right, Kansas took down Notre Dame 71-61. Kansas starting to show some things now. However, they did get a very easy draw. They got the easiest draw in this entire tournament. Badunga, Bryson Tiller, and Trey White were really good, combining for 51 points, 27 rebounds. So the three of them only scored 10 points less than the entire Notre Dame team. They're playing without Darren Peterson, so good win for the Kansas team here. We'll talk about them here a little bit more in a second. Number 17, Tennessee took down Rutgers in the opening game matchup. Rutgers, I don't know why they're in this tournament. Actually, I do know why they're in this tournament, because of Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper last year, and now they're getting paid a lot of money to get drilled. So good for Rutgers in this situation. But Jacoby Gillespie was awesome in this one. In the first half, just went crazy, and then kind of had a slow second half because they didn't really need him. 32 points. Nate Ament was also good, had 20 points in this one. Tennessee with a really good start to the season. We'll talk about him once again, a little more here in a second. And then Maryland took down UNLV in the late night game. I didn't stay up for this game. I'm sure not a lot of people stayed up for this game. Maryland did get Farrell Payne back, which is good to see after that kind of gruesome looking injury. He's back. Miles Rice kind of on limited minutes right now, but they take down Josh Pastner's UNLV, the sort of hosts of this tournament. And then moving on to the Maui Invitational, where the surprise Seton Hall takes down NC State. 95-0 to start the season was AP ranked teams against unranked teams. This was the first loss as NC State loses to Seton Hall. What can you say about Shaheen Holloway? What a tremendous coach he is. Kind of taking the Dennis Gates approach from Missouri, where, 2 years ago had a really good year. Seton Hall won the NCAA NIT tournament. And then last year was just horrible, absolutely horrible. And then this year, a rebound year. But I don't think anyone's really questioning Shaheen Holloway as a coach. He's a really good basketball coach, just doesn't have a lot of money there. Like we said, Dennis Gates, he made the tournament, then went 0-18 in the SEC, and then was a 6 seed last year. So kind of taking that same approach. But Shaheen Holloway, great job. AJ Staten McCray, 22 points, 8 rebounds in this game, has kind of solidified himself as their go-to scorer in big situations. NC State just looked out of sorts, and that's credit to Seton Hall. They're very fast. They're tremendous athletes, can kind of fly over the court. Shaheen Holloway is a defensive coach. Look good in this one. Big win for Seton Hall. NC State just they got a lot of new pieces. I think they'll be fine, but good win for Seton Hall. Also in the Maui, USC took down Boise State 70-67. Rodney Rice has kind of solidified himself as maybe Maryland's, or excuse me, maybe the transfer from Maryland, maybe USC's best player. Him and Chad Baker-Mazara both been really good. 27 points, 4 of 7 from 3 was Rodney Rice in this game. Boise State suffers a loss here. Boise State, I don't think they're going to be even near the bubble conversation this year. I think this team, which might not be much of a surprise with their opening night loss to a Division II school. A surprising result, though, Arizona State takes down Texas thanks to a Mo Odom go-ahead 3. 36 points for him in this game on only 33% shooting. Man, was he firing some shots. 7 of 21 from the field, but 6 of 12 from 3. So do the math. 1 of 9 from 2. Let this guy just fire away from 3. However, he did get to the line a ton. 16 of 18 free throws in that huge go-ahead 3. It was just kind of it was an incredible shot. It wasn't an open look. It was kind of a fadeaway looking, just contested 3. Knocks it down. I said on a hot take, I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit here. I don't know if Texas is going to make the tournament this year. This would have been this is what I said in the preseason. I don't like the makeup of this team, and they don't look too spectacular to start the season, losing to a Bobby Hurley squad that is, picked towards the bottom of the Big 12. But a good win for Arizona State. And then Washington State did beat Chaminade. Kind of got a scare from Chaminade, but Washington State got the job done there. So what does this mean for Maui? This set up this. I talked on the preview podcast. I'm like, the best thing if you're just looking for best basketball would be NC State versus Texas in the championship game. Well, they both got beat in the first round. So thank God for Seton Hall, because that was kind of the cool story of the Maui of like, okay, now there was a lot of good games. Seton Hall out of nowhere kind of, the Players Era Festival is taking away the Maui juice. That's not even a bold take. It is happening. Look at the Maui field. This is the worst Maui field we've seen in a very long time. So Seton Hall, that was kind of good for the Maui, but then Texas losing, it's like, oh God, what's the best scenario we can get now? Like, you kind of got to root on USC as like the best team, and Washington State somehow drew Chaminade in the opening round. So it's like, I don't know. We'll talk about the round 2 games here in a second. Then just the mid-major game of the day, we wanted to highlight the Paradise Jam Championship. 2 teams that'll probably, if they make the NCAA tournament, which they're the favorites in their league, probably be 12 or 13 seeds. Yale took down Akron 97-94, 2 mid-majors to keep an eye on there. All right, let's move on to Tuesday, what just happened yesterday. Let's start with the big one. In the Players Era Festival, number 17, Tennessee, and number 3, Houston. Tennessee got them, 76-73. Really well-played game by both teams. Jacoby Gillespie, 22 points, has solidified himself as one of the best point guards in the entire country, not just the SEC, in the entire country. Houston actually got off to a big lead early in the first half. They were up by 11, I believe. Kingston Flemings was really good, 25 points. However, this team's really missing LJ Cryer. Kingston Flemings has kind of stepped into the role of LJ Cryer. However, what made that team so good last year was the 3-point shooting. Kingston Fleming's a really good 3-point shooting team. However, this isn't really the offensive identity for Houston yet. It's still a good 3-point shooting team. It's just not quite, to the level of last year, which is going to be hard to do. That was the best 3-point shooting team, I believe, in Houston history. So just kind of trying to find an offensive identity, not worried about Houston. To me, this tells me a lot about Tennessee. I actually bet Houston in this game just because I thought this was kind of going to be a wake-up call for Nate Ament, just going against some dudes on that Houston roster of you might be able to score against Rutgers, but can you score against JoJo Tugler? I was wrong. They looked really good. Jacoby Gillespie looked really good, as did Nate Ament. Felix Okpara, maybe the most underrated big man in the entire country. He's awesome as well. JP Estrella has played really well. To me, this told me a lot about Tennessee. Houston, they're 6-1 right now, off to a little bit of a, I know 6-1 sounds crazy, as like a slow start. They haven't just been looking the part of like the preseason number 1/number 2 team, depending on who you're talking to, but they'll be fine. They're going to grow. And with all the freshmen, I don't really have any worries about them. But right now I do have them as I think I just did some rankings. I'm not even going to post. I just do them every day just to keep up with it. I think I have them as 8. So not bad, but Houston levels, we'll see if they can get back up to the national championship radar. Also in the Players Era Festival, number 21 Auburn and number 7 Michigan, an absolute blowout. Michigan wins 102-72. They scored 59 points in the first half. They had 6 players with 10 plus. So like we said in the last game, they had a bunch of players with balanced scoring in a 40-point blowout, a bunch of players scoring balanced wise in a 30-point blowout in this one. So we'll see what happens when they play a little bit of a closer call. Who's going to be that go-to guy? I think the popular pick would be Axel Lendeborg, who looks great. They didn't even get a great game from Ade Mara in this one or Elliot Cadeau, and they still just look the piece. They're so deep. They have so many options. I like this Michigan team a lot. So this will set up a Michigan. We'll talk about it here in a second. Let's keep going through it. Number 14, St. John's took on Baylor. St. John's got the victory, 96-81. St. John's size just too much for Baylor in this one. Baylor is very guard heavy. In fact, they start sort of all 5 guards if you consider Dan Skilling's a guard. Bryce Hopkins was awesome in this one for St. John's. 26 points, 9 of 12 from the field. Ozias Sellers continued up the good work from 3. 5 of 7 from 3, had 22 points. And then Dylan Mitchell's my favorite player on this St. John's team. 18 points, 8 of 10 from the field. Does a little bit of everything, can pass, can rebound, flies all over the court, will guard their best guy. And he's, a forward, a big guy. I love Dylan Mitchell, one of my favorite players in all of college basketball. Going to be one of my guys to watch this upcoming season. Cam Carr was once again the best player for Baylor in this one. He had 27 points, but just the size was just too much for St. John's. They're just much more talented than Baylor in this one. Creighton took on Iowa State. Creighton continues to struggle. They get beat 60-78. Iowa State, really good. They did play this game without Tamin Lipsey. As mentioned, he suffered a little knee injury. He was game time decision, so probably just a precaution, and they're probably going against one of the worst teams in the Players Era Festival, if I say so myself, this year, this Creighton team. But Josh Jefferson steps up, 18 points, 10 rebounds, and Torrey, who stepped in for Tamin Lipsey in the starting lineup, also played really well, 20 points. Maybe they find a little depth piece there. So good for TJ Otzelberger. Iowa State seems to be towards the top of the sport yet again. Syracuse took on Kansas. Syracuse lost 60-71. Kansas with another victory here. Flory Badunga, Trey White, yet again, the leaders on this team. Badunga, 13 points, 14 rebounds. Trey White, 15 points, 10 rebounds. Melvin Council also had 14 points, but he was 3 of 15 from the field. He's got to be a little bit more under control for this Kansas team to be what they can be, but Kansas is going to have a big 3. I thought it was going to be a big 2 with Badunga and Darren Peterson. When Darren Peterson comes back, the addition, sometimes an injury just helps other players develop a little bit quicker, and I think that's going to be the case with Kansas and Trey White. This team seems to be improving every single game. They controlled this entire game. Syracuse, once again, with free throw problems. William Kyle, as we mentioned, 1 of 6 from the free throw line in this one, but told me a lot about Kansas. I think Syracuse is going to be near the bubble for the entire season, but Kansas, they're going to be solid. I know an easy draw. You get Syracuse and you get Notre Dame, but still look the part. They look well. In a later game, Maryland and number 12 Gonzaga. My God, what a blowout! 100-61. Gonzaga just dominates them. Maryland looking a little rough, but Gonzaga really good. As we mentioned, number 1 team in the country at KenPom right now. Braden Huff was really good in this one, 20 points. Didn't get a fantastic game from Graham Ike in this one. Wasn't bad, or Tyon Grant Foster, but they just have so many options. So Innocente and Steele Venters coming off the bench, combined for 29 points, 9 of 14 from the three. Good to see Steele Venters healthy and playing for this Gonzaga team. They just have so many options. This team is really good. So that will set up a Gonzaga versus Michigan for the championship game in the Players Air Festival, which we'll talk about here in the game previews. Oregon loses to San Diego State. San Diego State scored 54 points against Michigan. Now he scored 97 against Auburn. That is concerning. Or not Auburn, sorry. Oregon scores 97 against Oregon. That is concerning for this Oregon team. San Diego State picked up a much-needed win. They were off to a slow start after getting slaughtered by Michigan. They also lost at home to Troy in that triple overtime game. So San Diego State desperately needed a victory. They did get one here against an Oregon team. Reese Waters or Reese Dixon Waters, whatever you want to call him. BJ Davis combined for 43 points, 7-11 from three. Now I notice I don't have Magoon Gwath on here. However, his impact was incredible as Oregon's Nate Biddle only one rebound in this game. That's credit to Magoon Gwath for San Diego State, who just kept him off the boards. This Oregon team, I am not too fond of. They're getting figured out as they got figured out in the middle of last season. So yeah, we'll kind of a wait and see approach on Oregon. They're probably going to have to go 500 or better in the Big Ten to make the NCAA tournament. San Diego State needed this win for their at-large resume. Next up in the midnight game, number 8, Alabama versus UNLV, complete domination, win by, quick math here, 39 points, 115 points for Alabama. My God. Aiden Holloway, 26 points, their leading scorer in this one. Not much to talk about in this game. And then Notre Dame did beat Rutgers in the opening game, 68-63. Kind of a whatever game for me, in my opinion. Moving on to the Maui in the semifinal, Seton Hall taking on USC, where USC got them 83-81. Seton Hall led big in the first half. It looked like this is going to be a Seton Hall rejuvenation after the win against NC State. Can they beat USC, maybe get ranked? USC got the job done. Ezra Azar had 25 points, 8 rebounds, 15 of 19 from the free throw line. He gets to the free throw line just about as much as anyone in the entire country. If I had to pick two, him and PJ Haggerty, the best foul drawers in the entire country. This game was so lopsided in terms of the foul distribution. USC got fouled a ton more than Seton Hall. Take that as you will, whether you want to, me just personally watching the game, I thought it was more of a USC being disciplined sort of thing. However, there were a couple calls where it's like, oh, really? That's a foul? I believe USC had shot like 18 free throws in the second half before Seton Hall shot 1. So it's like, it's a little bit off there, but needless to say, USC does end up getting the win 83-81, even with, Seton Hall hung in there even with that big foul dispersion. Moving on, well, let's talk about Bud Clark real quick for Seton Hall. 18.7 assists, had a really good game for Shaheen Holloway there. Moving on to the other semifinal game, which this is a game where if this wasn't in the Maui, it probably wouldn't even be televised. Washington State and Arizona State. Arizona State wins 100-94. Mo Odom had another big one in this game. He didn't shoot as much as he did in the last game. He had much more efficient, 26 points, 5 of 7 from 3 in this game to set up an Arizona State USC championship game. 2 old Pac-12 mates there. Talk about that here in a second. NC State did beat Boise State. Boise State, like I said, I don't think they're going to be near the bubble. And then Texas did beat Chaminade. So this will lead to a NC State Texas game for, what would that be? The 4th place game or 5th place game it would be. And that's kind of, we wanted NC State Texas and we're going to get it, except it's going to be in a 5th place game. Ole Miss and Iowa in the Acrisure Classic. This was really the only notable game that really pay attention to in the Acrisure Classic. There's a couple different Acrisure. There's the Acrisure Classic, Acrisure Invitational, Acrisure Holiday Invitational. So Iowa gets the better of Ole Miss. Bennett Sturts was awesome, and Ben McCullum continues to be awesome. 29 points, 6 of 8 from 3 was Bennett Sturts in a 74-69 win over Ole Miss. For Ole Miss, AJ Storr has looked the part. He's looked like the Wisconsin AJ Storr instead of the Kansas AJ Storr. He had 22 points in this matchup. Just a true home game for Indiana against Kansas State, where Indiana just beat them from start to finish, 86-69. Tucker DeVries with a slow game in this one. Reed Bailey, 21 points in this matchup. But why I think this is important, it looked like Kansas State didn't have the size to match up with Indiana, which the big concern coming into the season was the front court for Indiana. Were they Big Ten caliber players? Did they have enough size, enough rebounding? They looked the part in this game. They looked like they had enough size. In fact, they looked bigger than Kansas State. They contained PJ Haggerty in this game, and Reed Bailey was really good in the front court. They looked like the better basketball team and the bigger basketball team. So Indiana, a team to watch moving forward. How about this one? Number 18, UCLA loses to Cal, 80-72, in just a true home game for Cal in this one. We'll talk about UCLA, but let's give credit to California here. Chris Bell, the transfer from Syracuse, 22 points, 5 of 7 from 3. A better Cal team than we've seen in a long time. This team's got some pieces. We saw them take, was it Kansas State to the wire? 96-99, they lost that game. But let's be honest, the story here is UCLA. Mick Cronin obviously not happy in the post-game press conference. Donovan Dent was supposed to be most people's transfer of the year, in quotation marks. He had 3 points in this game, and he has just been bad. His shooting splits this year, 36% from the field, 9% from 3. He's only 1 of 11 from 3, and he's shooting 57% from the free throw line. Not been good. Maybe he's just not meshing with Mick Cronin. Maybe it's just a slow start, and he'll figure things out. But yeah, UCLA came in with a lot of hype, and they are falling like crazy at KenPom right now. California, great win, but UCLA, their best win, Eastern Washington to open the season. Not good. Not good for UCLA right now. They better start to figure some things out, or they're going to have a pretty good Big Ten conference record. And in the Fort Myers tip-off, number 16, North Carolina, number 16, took down St. Bonaventure 85-70. Caleb Wilson and Henry Visar were awesome. The front court, one of the best front court in the country. 44 points, 25 rebounds combined for that dynamic duo. And then in the mid-major game that we'll just highlight real quick, Murray State took down George Washington 96-95. Two teams that could be sneaky 12/13 seeds come March Madness. All right, so that's everything that's happened from Feast Week right now. Let's just talk about the KenPom rankings right now as they stand, where this took us for the where this took us post middle Feast Week, I guess you might call it. Alrighty, here we go. Here is the KenPom rankings as it stands right now. Gonzaga up at number 1. As we mentioned, they are... Sorry, hopefully we didn't glitch too bad right there. Having a little bit of technical difficulties, but Gonzaga up at number 1. They're 7-0 to start the season. Highly prolific offense and defense. I'm not going to talk about all of these. I'll talk about the top. Let's talk about the top 16, because the top 16 are like all incredible basketball teams. Where do you rank them anywhere? Purdue's at number 2. Michigan's at number 3. Or Duke's at number 3, sorry. Michigan's at number 4. Houston is still in the top 5. Iowa State's at 6. Florida at 7. Arizona at 8. Louisville at 9, Tennessee jumps all the way up to 10, BYU's at 11, St. John's 12, Illinois 13, Kentucky 14, UConn 15, Alabama 16. Where do you rank these teams in general? And then let's talk about, you got Vanderbilt, who I love, at 17, Michigan State at 18. What do you do with them? Because they have 2 huge wins to start the season. So when you start seeing some rankings and you see like Michigan State or Illinois or something ranked like 14th, you can't get too mad at them, because there's so many good teams at the top of the sport right now where it's like, what do you do with them? Now, I will say I do think Kentucky should be lower than a lot of these teams, but Alabama has 2 losses. However, they've got some of the best wins in the entire country. So this is just, kind of notable right now. USC moved up to 32. They're actually ahead of UCLA at 33. I did want to layer that one out. Arkansas is way down at 35 right now. A couple other notable ones, Utah State at 24. Not a lot of people talking about Utah State. With San Diego State sort of struggling to start the season, Boise State has not looked very good. Utah State might be the team to beat in the Mountain West this year. And then NC State did drop down to 26. That was kind of the only other one I wanted to lay out. The other thing I did want to mention, if you look at the defensive ratings, look at Michigan. Michigan has the number 1 defense in the entire country right now, according to KenPom. It's not Houston. It's not Iowa State. It's Michigan. In fact, Cincinnati, I believe, has the 3rd ranked defense in the entire country. However, they're 160th in offense. That's Wes Miller for you. But Michigan, not really, Dusty May, not really known as a defensive coach, kind of known of more of the offensive genius side, but a number 1 ranked defense with this offense that they have, that is quite scary for the Big Ten and the rest of the country. So just quick little KenPom rankings there. All right, let's dive into the games for Wednesday. So we're going to have two graphics here. We're going to have 14 total games, 7 on each, broken into the early tip-off, starting with a battle for Atlantis. Like I said, I'll mention the games, but we're not going to talk about them because we talked about them in our last podcast. Number 24, Vanderbilt versus Western Kentucky. Vanderbilt favored by 18.5. That game's at noon on ESPN. In the Players Era Festival, a consolation game, Syracuse taking on number 15, Iowa State. We'll see if Taman Lipsey is going to play. Taman Lipsey and Iowa State, if he plays, I guess. Favored by 9.5 in that game against Syracuse. Iowa State has looked pretty invincible right now to start the season. We'll see if they can pick up another good win here. At 2:30 on ESPN, the Maui Invitational Championship. Arizona State versus USC. Yikes. Pretty rough Maui Invitational Championship. Last year it was Iowa State versus Auburn. Arizona State versus USC. USC favored by 5.5. No disrespect. It's just tough to see this Maui Invitational field just kind of crumble because of the Players Era Festival. 2:30 ESPN. USC favored by 5.5. If they win that game, they should be ranked come AP poll time next week. 2:30 on ESPN2. Battle for Atlantis, VCU. UCF talked about it last podcast. Once again, go back and watch it. Players Era consolation game, 3:30 on TNT. Number 3, Houston, favored by 11.5 over Notre Dame. We'll see if Houston can rebound. Had Syracuse in overtime. Looked fine against Tennessee. We'll see if they can win by more than 11 against a Notre Dame team. Battle for Atlantis, 5 o'clock ESPNU, Virginia Tech and Colorado State. The Maui Invitational third place game at 5:30 on ESPN2. Seton Hall versus Washington State. Seton Hall is favored by 9.5 in this game. I would expect them to rebound and pick up a victory over this Washington State team after losing kind of in heartbreaking fashion to that USC team in the semifinals. Let's move on to the later slate, which is the better slate. Players Era a third place game. So for those who don't know, if you make the top 4, you're automatically, so the top 4 right now would be Kansas, Tennessee, Gonzaga, and Michigan. Top 4 teams, they all get an extra bonus, as I believe all these teams are getting somewhere around $1 million to just play in the Players Era Festival. Now they're going to share another $2 million with the winner getting $1 million, I believe is how it's going to go. So Kansas, Tennessee already guaranteed to make a share of the money, but nevertheless, they both want a big win here. Number 17, Tennessee, is favored by 4.5 over Kansas at 7 o'clock on TNT. That should be a fun matchup there. We'll see if Kansas can match up without Darren Peterson to this prolific Tennessee team. Kind of lean Tennessee in that game. 7:30 on ESPN2, Battle for Atlantis, St. Mary's versus Wichita State. Said on the last podcast, I'll say it again. We're hoping for a St. Mary's versus Vanderbilt championship of the Battle for Atlantis, but we were wishing for an NC State Texas championship game in Maui for just to see the best game. Didn't work out, but we will still see that game. But yeah, hopefully St. Mary's and Vanderbilt can get there, as it would be a top 25 caliber matchup. 8 o'clock on True TV, a Players Era consolation game. Nevertheless, a good one. St. John's taking on Auburn. St. John's favored by 6.5 in that game. Give me St. John's minus 6.5 in that matchup. Then at 9:30 on TNT, the game of the night, Players Era Festival Championship, playing for $1 million. Number 12 Gonzaga taking on number 7 Michigan, and we have a low spread here. Gonzaga favored by 1.5 in that matchup. This is going to be so much fun. Both teams, Michigan's winning by 30, winning by 40. Gonzaga's winning by 40 and beating Alabama by 10. So neither team has really been in a gut-wrenching game. We'll see what it's going to be here. Gonzaga favored by 1.5. I lean Gonzaga, but we'll see. This Michigan team is really good too. Maui Invitational consolation, as we mentioned, number 23, NC State versus Texas, 9:30 ESPN2. NC State favored by 2.5 in that game. We'll see. We'll see about that one. Players Era consolation game, Baylor and San Diego State, 10:30 True TV. Baylor favored by 2.5 in that matchup. And in the Players Era consolation game, Maryland versus number 8 Alabama. Alabama favored by 13.5 in that one. That's at 11:59 or midnight on TNT. Now, there are going to be some games on Thursday. However, we're not going to talk about them. Come back or go to our Instagram at Bracket Science with 2 S's to check out the games that'll be played on Thursday. We're breaking them out day by day, every single day. So be sure to go check that out. That's going to do it for the show today. Just kind of a quick, just little recap and reaction for the mid-feast week activities. Hopefully I gave a little bit of some bold takes. Oregon, Creighton. If I were to bet right now, I don't think they're going to make the NCAA tournament. I think I would lean no on San Diego State as well. So we'll get a little hot takey with it. But however, we've had some fantastic matchups. Feast Week has lived up to the hype, specifically the Players Era Festival. We'll see what the Battle for Atlantis can be. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we will be back on Friday to recap the rest of Feast Week. We'll talk about the matchups that happened today. Like we said, we do have some matchups on Thursday from the Players Era Festival consolation games, but not the highest level games, but we will talk about those. So come back on Friday, like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, turn on the post notifications so you stay up to date on the college basketball season. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you again on Friday after Thanksgiving. Everyone bloated and all. See you then.